The moment Carson woke up, he knew something was wrong. The air smelled too clean. The light above him had no flicker, and worst of all, his wrists and ankles were strapped down. The last thing he remembered was jogging through the city park, earphones in, minding his own business. Then, a flash of light. Now, he was here. A shadow moved across his vision. His eyes adjusted, and he saw them. 3 creatures, standing in a row like nervous interns on their first day. They were tall, pale-skinned, with large, pitch-black eyes that blinked too slowly to be natural. Their limbs were long and eerily fluid in their movement. Carson sighed. Oh, great, aliens. The 3 creatures turned to each other, their thin lips curling slightly. One of them adjusted the sleek silver device in its hand and spoke in a measured, clinical tone. Human specimen is awake. Carson groaned. Yeah, no kidding. The tallest one stepped forward. You have been chosen for a study. Lucky me. They ignored his sarcasm. Your kind displays a confounding relationship with pain. The threshold of human endurance is inconsistent. Some collapse from minor injuries, others persist through severe trauma. Your species baffles our scientific understanding. Carson frowned. I don't know, seems pretty straightforward to me. Pain hurts, we just deal with it differently. The alien closest to him flicked a switch on its device. A mechanical hum filled the air. We will determine how you respond to different injuries and stimuli. Wait, Carson said quickly. Let's not start stabbing me before breakfast, all right? The tall one tilted its head. You require nourishment? I mean, it'd be nice. There was a pause before one of them pressed something on the wall. A compartment opened, revealing what looked like a grayish-blue cube. Carson hesitated before biting into it. It was dry, flavorless, and crumbled in his mouth like compressed dust. This is terrible, he muttered. It contains all required nutrients. It doesn't mean it isn't awful. The aliens exchanged glances, then returned their focus to their instruments. We will begin with minor injuries. Wow, no warm-up, huh? The smallest of the 3 stepped forward with what looked like a thin metallic needle. A simple puncture wound to the epidermis. Carson clenched his jaw. He hated needles. But compared to whatever else they had planned, this was nothing. The needle slid into his skin, a sharp prick, a bit of warmth, but nothing unbearable. He let out a slow breath and looked up. The aliens were watching him with wide, unblinking eyes. You have no extreme reaction, the tall one stated. Carson shrugged. It's a needle, not exactly a bear attack. They murmured in their language, glancing between their screens and his face. Another alien stepped forward, a small rectangular device in hand. It pressed the device to Carson's forearm. A faint sting, then a spreading warmth, like a bad sunburn. He exhaled through his nose, blinking at them. That all you got? The shortest one flinched. You do not cry out? Would it help? Carson smirked. But it wasn't exactly a full laugh. The truth was, it did hurt. A deep, burning kind of pain. But he'd had worse. This is alarming, the tall one muttered. Escalation is required. Carson winced. Really don't like the sound of that. They exchanged glances again, and Carson could tell they were just getting started. Carson's arms tensed against the restraints as the tallest alien pressed another device against his forearm. It was smooth and cold, and before he could ask what it did, a sharp jolt ran through his muscles. His fingers curled involuntarily, his arms spasming against the metal table. He gritted his teeth. This was different. It wasn't like getting zapped by a faulty outlet. It was deeper, a raw pain that reached into his nerves. His breath hitched, but he forced himself not to shout. A low grunt escaped his throat instead. The aliens leaned in, fascinated. Pain response is present, yet vocal distress remains minimal. Carson exhaled through his nose. Yeah, pain is pain. What do you want me to do, start screaming? That would be more in line with expectation. Well, sorry to disappoint, he muttered. His fingers twitched as the last of the current faded from his muscles. His whole arm ached now, and he could still feel the ghost of the shock along his nerves. The shortest alien turned to the others. Increase intensity? Carson's stomach twisted. All right, hold on. We've established I can feel pain, so why not just... The tallest one pressed a different button, and something clamped onto his leg. Cold metal plates tightened around his shin, and suddenly, pressure built like an invisible vice. It started as a dull squeeze, but then it became sharper, like a deep crushing weight. Carson's breath stuttered. This was worse than the shock. His bones felt like they were being pressed inward, just enough to hurt but not enough to break. His instinct was to jerk away, but the restraints held him firm. He clenched his fists, breathing hard. "This is fascinating," the smallest alien murmured. "He is clearly in pain, yet still does not wail." Carson forced his voice out between clenched teeth. "Oh, I can wail if you want, but I'd rather you just let me go." The pressure tightened. His vision swam for a second. A groan slipped out before he could stop it. His leg throbbed, deep and insistent. He wanted to thrash, to kick, but he was locked in place. His breath came faster, and a bead of sweat slid down his temple. The tallest alien leaned in. "This threshold, how does it compare to your previous injury?" Carson clenched his jaw, trying to push through the pain clouding his thoughts. "Would you believe me if I said I once stepped on a Lego that hurt worse than this?" The aliens looked at each other. "What is a Lego?" Carson gritted his teeth and exhaled sharply. Pure evil. The pressure suddenly released and his leg throbbed in relief. He sagged against the table, sucking in air. His muscles still screamed, but at least the crushing weight was gone. The smallest alien took notes, eyes flicking over his body. Signs of strain visible, perspiration increasing. "Shall we proceed to the next stage?" Carson let out a dry, humorless laugh, though his chest still rose and fell heavily. "I don't suppose the next stage involves a nice massage?" "No," the tallest one said simply. Carson's fingers twitched, his body still ached, his leg pulsing with leftover pain, and he knew they weren't done. Whatever came next would be worse. He swallowed hard. And the aliens watched, fascinated. Carson's breathing was still uneven when the tallest alien gestured toward a tray of instruments. The metallic tools gleamed under the sterile light, and his stomach twisted at the sight of them. Whatever they had done so far was nothing compared to what was coming. The smallest alien selected a thin, curved blade, small enough to be precise, sharp enough to split skin effortlessly. Carson swallowed hard. "Okay, hold on. Before you go slicing me open, can we talk about this?" The aliens didn't even glance at him. "Incision will allow us to observe human tissue responses." "Ah, that's fantastic. And have you considered just asking?" The blade pressed against his forearm. He tensed, jaw locking, as it slid through skin with eerie precision. A slow, controlled cut, deep enough to bite, but not enough to sever anything important. The sharp sting flared instantly, followed by the wet heat of blood trickling down his arm. His breath caught. He gritted his teeth, the pain bright and immediate. One of the aliens leaned closer. "Fascinating. The blood flow is rapid." "No kidding," Carson bit out. The smallest alien pressed a strange, smooth instrument against the wound. It sent a cold, tingling sensation through his arm, and before he could question it, the pain dulled slightly. The bleeding slowed, though the cut remained open. "Pain receptors still active," the tallest one murmured, "yet he remains conscious and aware." Carson clenched his fists, trying not to focus on the raw sting in his arm. His whole body felt tense, wired from the pain and adrenaline. He wanted to scream at them, to demand they stop, but some part of him refused to give them that satisfaction. Instead, he took a sharp breath. "All right, you've seen my blood, you've seen my pain. Study over, right?" The aliens exchanged glances. "We must test a different form of pain." Carson's stomach dropped. "Oh, fantastic, because I was getting so comfortable." The smallest alien picked up a new device. A slim metallic rod with a pulsing blue tip. It crackled faintly, and he had a bad feeling about it. Before he could protest, the rod was pressed against his side. A burning sensation shot through him instantly. It wasn't like fire, wasn't like a cut. It was something deeper, like his nerves themselves were being unraveled. He gasped, his muscles locking up, his entire body shaking from the raw electric agony. A strangled noise slipped from his throat before he could stop it. The aliens leaned in eagerly. Reaction noted. His vision blurred for a second. His body trembled as the pain finally relented, leaving his nerves frayed and twitching. His breath was ragged now, his muscles coiled tight from the shock. That, he gasped, was absolute hell. The aliens tilted their heads. Yet you endure. Carson let out a shaky breath, sweat dripping down his temple. His body ached, his skin burned, and the open wound on his arm still pulsed with lingering pain. And yet, some part of him refused to break. The tallest alien stepped back, observing him with something that almost looked like unease. Carson swallowed hard, feeling his strength fading. He wasn't sure how much more of this he could take. But he could see it now, the first flicker of doubt in their wide, unblinking eyes. Carson's body was shaking. His breaths were uneven, sharp, each inhale tugging against the raw pain laced through his nerves. His forearm burned where they had cut him, his side still twitched from whatever that device had done, and his leg throbbed from the earlier compression. Every inch of him ached, and he could feel the sweat dripping down his back. But he was still conscious, still aware. The aliens weren't speaking. They watched him in a way that felt different now, less clinical, more uncertain. Their large black eyes scanned every part of him, and he could almost feel the weight of their thoughts pressing into him. Finally, the tallest one spoke. "You are exhibiting strain." Carson let out a slow, shaky breath. "Yeah, no kidding." The shortest alien turned back to their instruments. "Another test is required." Carson's stomach twisted. His body was already near its limit. The pain was layered now, dull in some places, sharp in others, a constant reminder that he was entirely at their mercy. He had no idea what they would do next, but he could tell they were reaching for something different. The tallest one approached him again. "We have observed your physical reactions, but there is another aspect we must study." He tensed. "What now?" The alien held up a sleek silver disc. "Emotional pain." Carson's breath stalled. His mind raced, trying to process what that meant. Physical pain was one thing, he could endure it, push through it. But emotional pain? That was different. That was something deeper, harder to control. The aliens didn't wait for his response. The disc was pressed to his temple. A sudden pressure filled his head, like invisible hands reaching into his mind. Images flashed before his eyes, memories, sharp and vivid, pulled to the surface without his permission. His father, standing at the hospital door, eyes distant, voice flat as he said, "I'm sorry, but we can't fix this." The empty chair at the dinner table, the one that should have been filled. The silence of an apartment that had once been filled with laughter. Carson's chest tightened. His hands curled into fists, his nails digging into his palms. He felt exposed, vulnerable in a way that physical pain had never made him feel. His breathing turned shallow as the memories came faster, each one cutting deeper than any blade. His sister's voice, small and quiet. "You'll be okay, right?" The disc suddenly lifted, and the pressure in his mind vanished. Carson gasped, his body shuddering as he was snapped back into the present. His vision was blurry, his breath uneven. The aliens stared at him. The tallest one tilted its head. "This pain? Your body did not react, yet your heart rate spiked significantly." Carson swallowed, his throat dry. He didn't respond. He couldn't. The smallest alien took a cautious step back. "This pain is not physical, yet it lingers." The room was silent. Carson didn't move, his jaw locked, his shoulders tense. His body still hurt, but that was nothing compared to the ache they had just dragged to the surface. The tallest one studied him, something unreadable in its expression. "You endured all previous tests, yet this affected you more than any wound." Carson exhaled slowly. His hands were still shaking. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It did." For the first time, the aliens didn't reach for another tool. They just stared at him, and for the first time they looked unsure. The room was quiet, too quiet. Carson sat still, his body tense, breath still uneven from what they had just done to him. The pain in his limbs, the lingering burn in his nerves, all of it paled in comparison to the weight now sitting in his chest. The aliens had dug through his mind, pulling out memories he never wanted to relive. And now, they were just watching him, like they had seen something they weren't supposed to. The tallest one finally spoke. This pain persists, yet it has no visible wound. Carson didn't answer. What was he supposed to say? They had spent all this time testing his limits, cutting, burning, crushing, trying to see how far a human could be pushed before breaking. But they had just stumbled onto something worse. Something they couldn't measure. The short alien hesitated. Your species carries pain even when the body is intact? Carson let out a slow, unsteady breath. Yeah, we do. The aliens exchanged glances, their black eyes flicking between him and each other. There was a shift in the air now. They had started this as an experiment, confident in their methods, treating him like some strange specimen to be examined. But now, they were hesitating, because they didn't understand this. Carson looked up at them, his voice quieter now. You wanted to see what pain does to us? His fingers curled slightly. It stays with us. It doesn't go away just because the wounds heal. The tallest alien tilted its head. How do you function? Carson's jaw tightened. He thought about every time he had forced himself to get up in the morning, every time he had smiled when he didn't feel like it, every time he had kept moving forward because stopping wasn't an option. We just do, he said. The alien stared at him like he was something unnatural, a being that shouldn't exist, something that defied their understanding. The smallest one took a step back. Your kind endures beyond logical limits? Carson swallowed. His body still ached, his nerves still raw, but he forced himself to sit a little straighter. Yeah, we do. The tallest alien pressed something on its device. A low hum filled the air, and the restraints around Carson's wrists and ankles suddenly clicked open. He blinked. He hadn't expected that. The aliens stepped away from him, their once curious expressions now uneasy. The tallest one spoke again, but this time there was something almost hesitant in its voice. The study is concluded. Carson flexed his fingers, his wrists sore from being restrained for so long. He didn't move just yet, just watched them carefully. That's it? The shortest alien nodded. We have seen enough. Carson could tell the truth. They hadn't just studied him. They had seen something that scared them. Not the way his body handled pain, not even the way he had resisted screaming through it. It was the fact that he had carried pain long before they ever touched him. And he still kept going. Carson took a slow, careful breath. His body was exhausted, his mind even more so, but he pushed himself to his feet, wobbling slightly. The aliens didn't stop him. They only watched, silent and unmoving, as he stepped toward the exit. Carson's legs were unsteady beneath him. His body was wrecked. His muscles ached. His nerves still buzzed with leftover pain, and the cut on his arm pulsed with every heartbeat. But he kept moving. One step, then another. The aliens didn't stop him. They only watched. The door at the far end of the room slid open with a quiet hiss, revealing a long, sterile hallway. Carson hesitated, glancing back at them. Their expressions were unreadable, but something had changed. The curiosity, the detached fascination, gone. In its place was something closer to caution, maybe even fear. He exhaled sharply. You don't get it, do you? The tallest alien stiffened. Clarify. Carson gestured vaguely at himself. You thought pain had a limit, that at some point I'd break. But that's not how it works. Humans don't stop just because something hurts. The smallest one took a cautious step forward. This does not seem logical. Carson let out a rough, humorless breath. It's not. He met their gazes, his own exhaustion pressing into his voice. "But it's why we survive." The aliens exchanged glances again, and for the first time since this started, Carson realized something. They weren't just studying him. They had been trying to understand if humans were something to fear. And now, he had his answer. They were terrified of him. Not because he was stronger, not because he was immune to pain, but because he wasn't. Because he had felt everything they had done to him. He had hurt, he had struggled, and he had almost broken. And yet, he was still standing. The tallest one finally spoke, voice quieter than before. "You should not be capable of enduring such suffering." Carson held their gaze, his body screaming at him to rest. "And yet, here I am." Silence. Then, the shortest alien turned away, pressing something on the wall. Another door hissed open. Beyond it, Carson could see darkness speckled with stars. A ship bay. An exit. He didn't waste time. His body protested every step, but he kept walking, leaving the observation room and the shaken aliens behind. As he reached the threshold, the tallest one spoke again. "Human." He stopped. The alien hesitated. "What will you do now?" Carson thought about that for a long moment. His body ached, his mind was raw, but he was still breathing, still here. He turned his head slightly. "Go home." The alien said nothing more. Carson stepped through the door. And this time, they didn't stop him.